he hasn't written anything that's threatening to anyone else. We're very worried about him. Keep an eye on him because it's possible that ... So it was really hard. It was sort of uncomfortable to have to be like sort of wading through this, which
because
was
you're waiting too.
Right. I'm just
it's
sort of
not,
right.
You
I'm waiting
just keep
around.
reading these.
And mostly what he wrote, I think, was for shock value,
which
and possibly mocking the fact that I think a lot of people that were taking the writing thing very seriously, he wanted to make fun of them, and so he did his own version of it. So that was early on. Anytime I come across somebody, I have a lot of respect for people who are willing to write truthful things. Not, the sort of confessional. You walk down the hallway of any high school with your ears open, and you hear people confessing the most ridiculous things, right? Oh my God, I can't believe that I did that, and he's such a jerk, and she did that, And
it's true.
And that, I think, is a different kind of confessional. People, maybe it's cathartic, or maybe they're trying to get a reputation, or maybe they just, there are a million reasons, right?
Yeah.
But for people who write down the truth and with no expectation or need to draw attention to themselves, I have a lot of respect for that. It's a sacred space. But it can be very difficult and distressing. And I think that's why a lot of my colleagues don't necessarily subscribe to the same philosophy that I do of reading all this stuff.
It's a hard position to be in, it sounds like.
It is. But it has its price, but it also has a real benefit. So far, with some help, it brings me into contact more with the counselors and more with the dean of students than other teachers. I'm very aware of what their jobs are like, right? And I'm handing things off to them more often, and I think that's all to the good, right? I feel like more connected to different aspects of kids' lives. When I started teaching, the first school was a boarding school, so I was also living in the dorm with the kids.
So that's a whole different spectrum of relationship.
Right, you get the whole nine, right? You're their mother and father for much of the year, and so in that context, I felt more comfortable reading those things because I felt like, well, they don't have mom or dad or big brother to talk to about it, so they should have somebody. I was 21 years old, and some of them, they were 5 or 6 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So I did feel like those issues were more live in my own mind. It is. It's always a little bit uncomfortable, and it's measured not by, I don't think, like the size of the confession in terms of I did this thing. It's a category this, right? But more, how big is it for this person?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I have a student who's showing all the signs of eating disorders, who says to me or writes to me that they're having problems with their eating, then while I take that very seriously, it doesn't upset me in the same way because I've sort of been waiting for it.
Yeah. That's true, rather than
something that comes out of left field, where I thought, wow, this person was really doing okay, and really they have this closet habit that's really unhealthy, then that generally takes me aback a little bit more. And it's interesting to find sometimes your suspicions are justified, and other times they're totally not, and that's another education as an adult to have, that you can't tell what's going on from looking, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't always be looking, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you've never, like, for instance, with the kid who just was doing these pictures and all that stuff, you never make direct contact with them? You don't come up to them after class? Or
I would definitely. In that case, too, I would write back. I always try to write back, even if it's just a few words.
Oh, that's
unless people don't want me to. I'll say, is it okay for me to write back? Usually on the very first one that we turn in for the year. And then as long as somebody writes to me, I'll write back to them, not a big paragraph, but I'll highlight a few things. And usually free writes are very funny. People just are willing to say really funny things or accidentally say really funny things. And so I'll always pull out those lines and highlight that and say. So I wrote back to this kid, and I forgot what I wrote, but I know I engaged and made contact and said, this is disturbing.
Responded?
Yeah, but he responded, sort of very coyly, and yeah, you don't have to worry about me. You don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. I'm okay.
Ooh.
I'm all right. I'm good. Which was what made
kind
me
of
really
brushed
worried.
it off. Yeah, exactly. That's the more worrisome part. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Opposite from. And then on a very different
Yes.
note, so Marco has taught in juvenile hall. He's taught
Right.
at all these schools. You also teach your humanities classes with juniors.
Right.
So this show's about teen issues, but it's also a lot about college.
Okay.
So that's one thing, and then also you grade AP papers. I
used to. Yeah, I haven't for the last couple of years, but I was a AP English exam reader for about 12 years.
Yeah. Anyway, so first of all, let's talk about that. What's that like? How did you start doing that?
Right. I think I was the youngest AP English exam reader ever. When I started, I was like 23
Wait, I
or
did the
24.
AP English exam.
You did? The AP
Yeah,
English language
lit.
one.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
Yeah,
did
the
AP
lit
English
one was
lit.
the one I used to grade it. But yeah, the language one is, I know that test pretty well because I
did English lit.
You did English lit?
Yeah, is that the ones you grade?
That's the one that usually seniors take.
Yeah. Well,
You're a little ahead of the curve.
I
How did you
guess.
do on it?
I felt like I did really good on it. Did really well on it. I wrote really cool essays. I usually don't write I don't know.
It's
I
a
felt
good
comfortable
test.
With it. It was fun.
Yeah.
I really liked it as a test, actually.
Yeah, it's one of the more fair standardized
That's good to
exams
hear.
that you'll find.
But so how'd you start doing that?
I started doing it because my first job in a department meeting during my very first year of teaching. So I was 21 when I started. So I was 22 probably. And the department chair, I think she was trying to get one of the other teachers to stay. So she's the department chair, had always taught AP Lit and was that kind of a thing. And she was
Yeah.
like, well, I would be willing to let someone else teach AP Lit. And I don't think, maybe the person next to me, I don't know if she was paying attention or she didn't care. And she was just kind of like, whatever. And so I was like, well, I'll do it. And it clearly wasn't the response she was fishing for.
Oh, no.
She wasn't. But now that it was out there,
Yeah.
she couldn't or didn't feel comfortable enough taking it back in the moment and just saying, oh, no, not you.
Yeah.
So then, from then on, I just pressed my case, and I went to these conferences, and I took a class
Yeah.
on how to teach. So it wound up that in my second year of teaching, I was teaching AP Lit when I was like 23 years old.
That's very impressive.
Right,
That's
and I
not
immediately
usual.
applied to be an AP exam grader because I thought, and I'd heard that was a really great way to get the inside view of what the test is all about, and
But-
you become a better teacher as a result.
So what drove you to want to teach AP English?
I just thought it would be cool. I mean, you get to teach whatever you want, and you're teaching. I had been teaching up to that point sophomores and eighth graders, and this would have been my first shot at teaching upperclassmen. And it's supposed to be the brightest kids at the school, and I was fascinated by that.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted
As a high school senior.
I wanted to take a shot at it, and it turned out to be a really wild ride. I wound up not that year, but the year after that, I was selected as a grader, and so I went there, and it really was a great education in teaching in general, particularly teaching AP Lit. But I met all these people. The AP Lit graders are half college teachers and half high school teachers.
Oh, that's so cool.
So there were tons of people all around, and you sit at tables of 6 or 8 people, and there's a table leader.
This is important stuff to
Right.
take notes, guys.
That's right. Who's sort of like middle management, and they run the show. And so, and I think I honestly was the youngest person there by like 10 to 40 years. I mean,
wow.
it was like a lot of old biddies, like
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
English
yeah.
teachers
Well, it's
with
English
the
lit,
the
yeah.
big floral, and then
Oh, I know
and
this
then
teacher.
right, college professors who were teaching writing in college or teaching English 101 or whatever it is for the most part, but some like very well published professors, and
Wow.
it's really a weird range of people, I was fascinated by the fact that they would like fly me there and put me up in a hotel and
That's
and
cool.
give
They
me
do
meals.
that for all the AP
Yeah, like
graders.
6
How many
or
are
800
there?
of them just for English alone. English is the
that's
biggest one by
cra-
far.
The
Well, there's a
AP
million tests or
community
something like
must
that.
be, like,
Yeah. Oh, it's a whole subculture. You wouldn't
wow,
believe it.
there's
I
this
mean,
whole fun.
yeah, people live
convention.
well because it was in Texas the first couple of years I did it, but then it moved to Daytona Beach.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. So then it became kind of even funner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of
AP
teachers,
parties.
and I still have friends from that, where we would kind of we wouldn't ever see each other except for that 1 week a year. And it was really interesting.
So what's AP Week like? You go there, you get
right. You go
in.
there, and the first thing you do is they train you. So as a reader, you show up and